Video 9 of the Broken Spears, we've been reviewing a little bit of information regarding the analysis of the oral narratives, the creation stories, and the work of Miguel León Portilla in order to heighten our awareness of the symbolism of Aztec dancing today. First of all, now that we reviewed that Huitzilopochtli was a real human that became a deity, and that Fray Bernardino de Sahagún compared him to Hercules because of his famous ability to display himself in battle, then it becomes understandable that he would have become satanized by those who were against the Mexicas, right? Very interestingly, the celebrations around Huitzilopochtli can still be seen today in the valleys of Mexico City. In the first and most famous of examples are the pilgrimages that people still take today to the Virgin of Guadalupe. I think we've reviewed already the Virgin of Guadalupe, and therefore it becomes pertinent to know that the Virgin of Guadalupe would have been Coatlicue, which was the mother of Huitzilopochtli, right? Therefore, we also know that the Mexicas celebrated the second year bundle in Coatepec, year one rabbit, right? 1142 to 1143. We know that the Coatepec Hill still exists today, and that it represents, according to this framework, the historical frontier between the mythical time of Aztlán and Chicomostoc with the real time of Coatepec and Tenochtitlan. Therefore, the birth of Huitzilopochtli in these ceremonies would be resembled as the birth of the sun that would be commemorated when people did these commemorations in this Coatepec Hill. They used to do them on the date of one Tecpatl that corresponds to the winter solstice. So we also have other celebrations going on around the winter solstice, which is the celebrations of Jesus. And this is where I will be telling us how interesting it is to see that if we use the cross-cultural comparisons among historical texts and creation stories, it becomes very interesting that the fact that people still hold such important pilgrimages to the Virgin of Guadalupe, they do so with the collective consciousness that the Virgin of Guadalupe is Coatlicue Tonantzin. And who is Coatlicue Tonantzin? Coatlicue Tonantzin is the mother of Huitzilopochtli. So the mother of Huitzilopochtli is Coatlicue Tonantzin, and therefore Huitzilopochtli has this mother that is very important in today's Mexican national history. Therefore, the Virgin Mary is mother of Jesus. So if the Virgin Mary is the Virgin of Guadalupe, and the Virgin of Guadalupe is the Coatlicue, and therefore if Coatlicue is the mother of Huitzilopochtli, and Coatlicue transforms to the Virgin Mary, and the Virgin Mary is the mother of Jesus, then therefore Jesus is Huitzilopochtli. I'm not sure if you had been aware of those connections before, but I hope after listening to these lectures, after reading Broken Spears, after making these types of assessments, we can see how interesting this study of religion becomes. Now, other things that I would like to alert you in the study of the Aztecs. Here we are just having the Aztec stories being one brief part of our lecture series in this Anthropology of Religion class. But now that you have been informed of the amount of misinterpretations that have gone on in the world of the Aztecs, I want you to think that whenever you hear about archaeologists, whether they are from Mexico or from wherever, and you hear about this practice of the human sacrifice, you first think that that most likely what was going on in the Aztec world was nothing like the human sacrifice that is portrayed in movies such as Apocalypto, but more of the human sacrifice is perceived as of these types of battles that the Mexicas told us they had. They would capture people in fights, they would submit them, then they would bring them so they could defeat them in front of everybody in the city. And therefore we have sacred fights that the best way to understand this is by observing how humanity behaves today regarding fighting events such as boxing or such as mixed martial arts. Okay, so these are many themes that we can explore further, but I wanted to leave you with these thoughts as we close this lecture series on the Broken Spears. Other very important things to understand: this is a painting of how the temples of Tlaloc and Huitzilopochtli would have looked in the landscape with the volcanoes of the Iztaccíhuatl and the Popocatépetl, and everything that we can understand about Mexican philosophy based on this, the duality of these magnificent volcanoes. We don't have time for me to tell you the whole creation story regarding the legends of the Popocatépetl and the Iztaccíhuatl, but I just want you to reflect upon the importance of obsidian, and obsidian is the stone, right, that is resembled in the god of Tezcatlipoca. The Tezcatlipoca is smoking mirror. Smoking mirror reflects to the power of nature, the reflexivity that looking at yourself at the obsidian makes you think about, and therefore it's a whole lecture series on Aztec philosophy that we don't have time into going. But as all cultures adapt themselves to their environment, the best way to understand the philosophy of the people of the Anahuac is in relations to understanding this very important creation story with the volcanoes. Another very important character of this creation story, but this is the creation story of Mesoamerica and the present day Mexico, is the story of Malinche. If you've taken any Chicano studies class, Mexican American studies class, or present day Latinx studies class, you will see that we have totally resignified how Malinche is being perceived today. Okay? In the historical accounts, we know that she became a main ally and enabler of Cortés because she became his lover, and she bore Cortés's kids, and many work has been done regarding this important historical figure. Here, what we have here is a depiction of how Diego Rivera portrayed La Malinche in the early 20th century. Okay. Here is another kind of graph that just opens the gates of how much we would need to keep studying about the Aztecs to understand the important symbolisms displayed in all of the information we have about them. Just to say that they believed that there were 13 heavens before you get to the Omeyocan, and that there were 9 underworlds before you reach the Mictlán. Tezcatlipoca Rojo, kind of to the north. Tezcatlipoca Rojo would be to the east, Quetzalcoatl Blanco to the west, Tezcatlipoca Negro representing the north, and Tezcatlipoca Azul representing the south. Now, colors are very cultural. All of this, I'm also telling you this because I know that we've been exploring through our textbook very important relationships of the analysis of symbolism. Here is an example of how much we would have to go into analyzing the Aztec world. Again, the important parts of the pictograms and the town glyphs and the basis of Aztec writing, of which we have no time to get into, but I want to make sure that we at least review so many of the themes that you can keep on learning about. So in our the main objective of my class here is to realize that since the moment that the Spanish massacred those warriors in the massacre of Toxcatl, the Mexicas have never stopped dancing. And therefore, knowing that the dance continued, and knowing that the mortuary bundles of Huitzilopochtli are still to be said to be held by sacred men, most likely somewhere in the barrios of Tepito, today in Mexico City, to keep these ideas in mind. But however, if we know that the Aztecs were dancing and continue to dance today in Mexico City, how come we have so many Aztec dancers here in the Bay Area of California? Okay, here we have Aztec dancers in the pyramids, mortuary temples of Teotihuacan. We haven't even analyzed or learned much about Teotihuacan, but much symbolism here. And therefore, The idea is that we realize the high importance of observing present-day ritual behavior, like we will keep doing here by analyzing Aztec dancing in the Alcatraz Bay Island, to the stories of 500 years ago. Okay, in this case, the stories of the mighty Aztec Empire, as it's been displayed here in this painting by Diego Rivera in the early 20th century. What we will have here in this painting is a perfect explanation of kind of the Aztec society that the Spanish encounters. And here what we will be having is, for our last slide, a reflections of the changing dynamics of power, but also of the importance of the ways in which people will keep resisting. Okay, so we've reached the end of the presentations on the broken spears. I hope you have more questions after we have reviewed the complexities of the symbolisms of this book in order to understand why there are Aztec dancers here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope you also think about this when you think about Oaxaca, California. This is the end of the Broken Spears video lectures. Thank you.